almost like the Flashpoint, where it starts, one of the key matrix lines that will help shatter this status.
You were born to embrace, not accepted.
Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me. I am Jay-Z, and I am your host here on Flashpoint Radio. It is Monday, May 21st, 2012. If you live in Chicago, you've almost survived. It's the last day of the NATO conference. All of the hype seemed to be a bit overblown, considering it is an American's right to protest. And it only seems when the police get too involved with those protests do they turn violent. But we will get to that in just a moment. Remember, follow me on Twitter at Flashpoint Radio, Facebook.com/Flashpoint Radio. Click like, subscribe to this feed, and reshare these with your friends and family if you care to wake them up. We're going to start this evening, though, with this article from Infowars.com by Steve Watson. Ron Paul storms to victory in Minnesota delegate race. Presidential candidate Ron Paul swept the board at the Minnesota State Convention this past weekend, winning 12 of 13 delegates to the Republican National Convention and effectively taking complete control over the party in the state. Remember, you are supporting liberty. You are a supporter of liberty, and Ron Paul happens to support that as well. That is why you support Ron Paul. If he does not make the ballot in November, that is not cause to be depressed or to get downtrodden. We are making victories. We are making headway in state delegations, in state Republican parties, and we're taking control locally because the changes have to come locally. Even if Ron Paul were to become president, if we didn't make changes in our localities, in our counties, cities, and states, nothing will be able to get to us from his top position as the Liberty Guard. So we have to start locally. We have to start in our local parties, our state parties, our county elections, support those people. So yes, just another victory showing that Ron Paul is still winning the hearts and minds of Americans, still tallying up delegates, and is still relevant in this 2012 presidential race. But as you all know, this was the NATO summit in Chicago over the weekend, and well, it was a little bit anticlimactic. From Infowars.com, Chicago establishment creates police state theater for NATO war council. Despite establishment media hype predicting a repeat of the violence at the 1968 Democratic Convention, the anti-NATO protests in Chicago have so far been largely nonviolent. As of Sunday, only 45 people were arrested. And most of the arrests seem to have come after police have ordered people to disperse. So this is the tactic the police take. They allow you to protest. They allow a lot of people to get within the confines of a street, and they let you go, and they let you do what you want, and then all of a sudden they call it an illegal protest and order you to disperse. Well, when you try to disperse, it just so happens that they block your exits. And then you have to try to push your way. Then they say you're assaulting police officers. They break out the riot gear, and then they go to town. Also, from NBC Chicago, Iraq, Afghan war vets to toss away their medals. They toss their medals aside in protest against NATO's military policies, and they state that NATO should be disbanded. I don't agree with everybody, but when they state true things, let's support them. How about we support the end of NATO, the end of the UN, the re-sovereigntation of the United States of America. The best part, the one big story that came out of the NATO summit this weekend was, of course, the arrest of the domestic terrorist. From CBS Chicago, arrested protester charges mistreatment after police raid apartment. This gentleman opened his home up to protesters who came from out of town. I believe they probably networked through a website as like Craigslist. He took these people in, gave them a place to sleep for over the weekend. They were, I guess, self-stated anarchists. The police raided his apartment and claimed that they were building bombs. This gentleman had home beer-making equipment. But they, of course, alleged that they were filling Molotov cocktails. Only the dumbest of people would believe that these people were building Molotov cocktails to attack the president's motorcade or the mayor's house or some sort of delegation when there's 8-foot security fences, there's helicopters, there's fighter jets being scrambled above the town, there's 40 different agencies collecting outside of Chicago to watch us. But yes, this gentleman had beer-making equipment. What do you have at beer-making equipment? Glass bottles, tubes, and liquid. But if the government wants to say they're making Molotov cocktails, well, they're making Molotov cocktails, and you'll believe anything. I'd be surprised if any charges were filed. This is just another way for the mayor of Chicago, for the police state, to trot out some disheveled, anarchists or bums or homeless people or, unemployed and state that they're the terrorists and they are the reason we need to spend millions of dollars. The city of Chicago spent $1 million in riot control equipment in anticipation of this NATO summit. That number comes to us from The Guardian. Welcome, NATO, to Chicago's police state. This is a wonderful article. Read it, please, below. By Bernard Harcourt out of the UK. This is a must-read because this is a mainstream publication calling out the police state in this country. And if you get to the very bottom, the last paragraph is how he ties it all together. After his first 2 points, he states, third, and finally, all of this, sadly, is here to stay. NATO will come and go, but the new anti-protest law, the new riot gear, the 2 LRAD sound cannons, and all the normalization of this police state, that will be with us for a long time. So do you understand? They say, we're going to have violence, we're going to have violence, we need to evacuate, we need to plan for this. That's a pretext to spend millions of dollars on riot gear that they can just keep around, just in case they need to use it for when they actually bring the police state out. We will shift from Chicago, from NATO, to other international stories from the Daily Beast. As Obama preaches patience, Mattis prepares for war with Iran. General James Mattis was asking to send a third Air Force carrier to the Persian Gulf, and Barack Obama told him no. He stated he wanted to focus military resources on new priorities like China, which, dovetailing with the next 3 articles, is a strange comment to make, considering this from CNN: China firm buys AMC to form world's largest cinema chain. China's Dalian Wanda Group and AMC Entertainment announced Monday a $2.6 billion deal to take over the U.S. theater group, forming the world's largest cinema chain, and that takes over the U.S.'s second largest cinema chain. Bought by China. How about this? Exclusive. U.S. lets China bypass Wall Street for Treasury orders. Well, China has gained new status and is the only central bank to gain the status to go directly to the U.S. Treasury to buy its U.S. government debt. Instead of going through the Federal Reserve, through Wall Street, through the fiat system, the government of China can go directly to our government and buy our debt, the United States taxpayers' debt. They can do this without Wall Street getting wind of the deals and basically just keeping everyone in the dark. But yes, the Chinese, who Barack Obama is worried about militarily, who wants to send a carrier to the China Sea to protect against military action from China, is now being allowed to A, buy a movie chain in the United States and go directly to our Treasury Department for buying of its U.S. debt. You add that with the fact that there's a new deal in the works for China to buy United States oil companies and shale companies and other energy-producing companies in the United States, and you have to wonder, why the double-sidedness? Why the contention that we're at war with China economically or militarily, but we're allowing them to come in and gobble up all our resources? And these aren't privately held Chinese companies. These are state-run Chinese companies. And what about this? What about the fact that we say we're at odds with Russia when it comes to a NATO defense shield, and that we have all of these, divisions between us and Russia, but this weekend we're going to have Russian troops in Fort Carson, Colorado, training with our troops? What is it? Are we allies with them or are we enemies with them? I mean, what's going on here? I'd just like to have a little bit of cohesion from our government as far as our relations with other countries, sovereign nations. But then again, we're not a sovereign nation. We take our orders from NATO, and we don't actually listen to the people or the House of Representatives anymore because, well, we don't need to do that to go to war. President Bush didn't need it. President Obama doesn't need it, and no president going forward needs it, because remember, the dictator will not be Barack Obama. The dictator is the office of the presidency. It is the executive branch of our government. It is a continuity of government. The government protecting against outside forces. They don't care who's at the helm. They don't care what puppet they put in place as long as the power stays the same. And well, if you're in it for the power, then you wouldn't care either. And unfortunately, I think Mitt Romney, I think he craves the power, personally. And he's not going to get my vote. Nobody will get my vote unless there is a liberty-loving candidate for me to vote for. But that's all we have on our NATO wrap-up and our China spotlight. Keep your eyes on that. There seems to be something brewing between us and other world powers. Jay-Z signing off saying, God bless, keep your eyes to the sky.
It's time.